What's up, football fans? Ryan Thomas back on the Thomas Take Sports podcast for this special edition episode coming at you to give you a preview, my preview and my take on some of the bigger storylines heading into week 4 of this National Football League season, as well as some of the storylines that have been persistent week to week and have evolved week to week this NFL season. A couple storylines, obviously a big one, Tom Brady's return to the New England Patriots as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. It'll be Tampa Bay versus the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football this weekend. It's probably going to be one of the highest rated games in NFL history. I'm very curious to see how Bill Belichick is going to attack his former quarterback defensively. Of course, I'm curious to see how Tom Brady will attack his former coach, offense versus defense. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers announced today that they signed All-Pro corner Richard Sherman. Tampa had a ton of holes on that secondary, a ton of corners and safeties and such that are out due to injury. Now they bring in Richard Sherman, who is a qualified corner to say the least. Are his best years behind him? We'll figure that out. We'll find that out in the near future as Richard Sherman will be making his Tampa Bay Bucs debut this weekend against New England. So that's another added layer to the storyline, and previewing the big storylines of week 4 is what this show will provide you guys, the viewers and listeners. Feel free to comment in the comment section below as this video is pre-recorded, and I will get to your comments at a later time. Fire away those comments. Of course, follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take, as well as on Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take, YouTube and Facebook, of course, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So I got a lot to say in this episode of week 4 storylines. And I want to tackle the bad news Chicago Bears. What is going on in Chicago with, in particular, head coach Matt Nagy, and in particular, the whole situation, whether or not Justin Fields is or isn't or should or shouldn't be the starter for the Chicago Bears. I have a lot to say in regards to this storyline. And it's a storyline that I thought would die down with the end result of Justin Fields being simply the starter for the Chicago Bears. I was wrong. The storyline has continued to persist. The storyline is not going anywhere because Matt Nagy has completely failed this organization in terms of this quarterback controversy. You got 3 quarterbacks. You got Andy Dalton, who started a lot of years in Cincinnati, of course, took over for Dak Prescott last year in Dallas when Dak went down. Nick Foles, a former Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, who had one of the greatest Cinderella story seasons of all time. And, of course, the first-round draft choice out of the Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields in this past April's draft by the Chicago Bears, was labeled as one of the better quarterbacks to come into the NFL in recent memory, was labeled one of the better quarterbacks in this quarterback class, along with the likes of Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, and of course, Trevor Lawrence as this Fab 5 rookie quarterback crop came into this league. Justin Fields was labeled as, in my list, the second best behind Trevor Lawrence. And as I've said time and time again, everything in this league is situational, especially with a rookie quarterback. Depending on where he goes, could make or break his career. You have Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You have a quarterback that was great in college that is on a very bad team in Jacksonville that will not do well in Jacksonville to start and hasn't done well to start, due in large part to the fact that Jacksonville just simply does not have a ton of weapons around him. And he's a very green prospect, new to the speed, the NFL speed of the game. So that's why I think you're seeing a little bit of a slow start from him. But Justin Fields, as an NFL head coach, we'll go back to Matt Nagy. As an NFL head coach, your job as an NFL head coach is to put your team in the best position to win. And that's a twofold premise. Twofold premise in the sense that you put your team in the best position to win by putting the best who you deem as the best players on the team to help you win, as well as X's and O's wise, strategically, how am I implementing the strengths of my team upon my opponent? And that's game day. Game day, sideline head coach. How am I doing in that regard? And Matt Nagy is failing in both facets. I just watched bits and pieces, of course, not all of it, but bits and pieces of Chicago's game last week with the Cleveland Browns. And I understand it as well as anyone that the Cleveland Browns have a formidable front seven, have a dynamic front four. And to say a dynamic front four, it's rare. Front four can mean, as far as a solid front four can mean a lot of different things. Mostly it involves strength, brute, blunt force trauma. But this front four in Cleveland, they are dynamic. You got Jadeveon Clowney, you have Myles Garrett, you have pieces on that front four that no team could even attempt to replicate in this current National Football League. But the Browns have a pretty damn good one, okay? But Matt Nagy, knowing that his rookie quarterback was going in there, knowing that his rookie quarterback was not only going in there on his first start, but was going in there on his first start against a very good team, in particular, a very good defense, he put him out there and hung him out to dry. We're talking about an organization that has not had a solid quarterback in a long time. We're talking about an organization that paid a quarterback like Jay Cutler hand over fist money that he just simply did not earn, that he just simply did not ultimately deserve or show that he deserved it as those years went on within that contract. We're talking about an organization that drafted Mitchell Trubisky, second overall in a quarterback class that featured Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes, who went later on in that draft. Taking Mitchell Trubisky before Pat Mahomes, taking Mitchell Trubisky before Deshaun Watson, trading up to take Mitchell Trubisky with the San Francisco 49ers, all while typically these decisions are made. When these decisions are made and these decisions are proven to be failures, the people that are responsible, the GM and the head coach, are no longer around. They're fired. They're cut loose. Well, Chicago still got these guys calling the shots. Chicago still got Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy calling the shots. Nagy, I can't even pronounce it. Doesn't matter. More likely than not, as this season continues to unfold for the Chicago Bears, the current head coach of the team will find himself by season's end as the former head coach of the Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy. And it's his own fault. You were given time and time again, chance after chance after chance. The bad news, Chicago Bears, drafting Mitchell Trubisky second overall, going with Mitchell Trubisky second overall, and naming him the apparent face of your franchise, starting him right out of the gate with a piss-poor supporting cast, starting him right out of the gate knowing that you had that piss-poor supporting cast, knowing that he would struggle, knowing that it wouldn't go well, and then pointing the finger at him and making him into a mockery was just not cool. That's the best thing. Not cool, short-sighted, unprofessional. And to be quite honest, I think the best thing to ever happen to Mitchell Trubisky is the fact that he did become a free agent, sign with Buffalo for a year, be a backup to a solid quarterback in Josh Allen, of course, and learn in this offense in Buffalo and hope that, once I'm fully polished, I'll come back to a great situation as a starter and hope that I can find that great situation as a starter. His agent has done him really well so far. His agent talked about his client so much that his client ended up being picked before Pat Mahomes. His agent did so well that he finally got him out of Chicago into a better situation, I think, as a backup in Buffalo. And look what Chicago learned from it. Apparently very little. Chicago learned zero from the Mitchell Trubisky situation in preparation for the Justin Fields era. And Justin Fields is a far better talent than Mitchell Trubisky. And Mitchell Trubisky is a talented quarterback. So that just goes to show you, I mean, physically gifted. Did he have the right X's and O's acumen in his 4 years there in Chicago? Not quite. Was he successful in Chicago? Not quite. But in terms of the player has skill. The player has intangibles. The player has ability. Justin Fields has more ability than that of Mitchell Trubisky. And it's up to Chicago to galvanize that ability, rein it all in, and attack the opposition with his ability. Not to force him into being something that he's not. More often than not, throws by Justin Fields in that game were from the pocket. They didn't have him rolling out. They didn't have him on the move. They had him as a sitting duck in the pocket for a defensive front four that is one of the more formidable front fours in the NFL, featuring guys like Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, to sack him to the tune of in total 9 times in that game last Sunday. And to top it all off, you watch that performance, you get the best seat in the house as the head coach. You're watching that performance on the sideline, and you face the media in Chicago, of all places, and say to the sports media in Chicago after they watch that debacle just as closely as anyone that, yeah, we have to figure things out. We have to decide who to start as a quarterback. We got Andy Dalton. We got Nick Foles, Justin Fields. We are going to take our time in figuring out who to start. That is a complete and total disaster of a situation in Chicago, and anyone on that team, anyone in that locker room is looking at this situation saying, our head coach, given training camp, given 3 weeks of preseason, given 3 weeks of an NFL season, still has no idea who our starting quarterback is and should be. Go in any direction and stick to it. They made a mistake, clearly, starting Andy Dalton from week 1 on. Clearly, they made a big mistake in that regard. They did not need to start Andy Dalton week 1. He should not have started week 1. He wasn't the best option to start week 1. Fields was. You take a quarterback in the first round, it can go one of two ways. You either start him and he plays and he develops by playing and develops by making those mistakes out on the field. Or if you decide not to start him, that's okay too. But if you decide not to start him, you better have a concrete plan moving forward, and you better damn well stick to it. Granted, Andy Dalton, they started Andy Dalton week 1 in Chicago. He got hurt. But if you go with a veteran week 1 and he gets hurt, you don't turn to the rookie. You hold the veteran mold at quarterback, and you roll with Nick Foles. Nick Foles has not been good in a few years. Nick Foles went from Philly to Jacksonville on a very rich contract. It didn't work at all. Traded from Jacksonville to Chicago, and they're paying him a pretty penny to just ride the bench. Nick Foles can start. Nick Foles can do better, in my personal opinion, than what he has shown, and Nick Foles can do better than that of a very brittle Andy Dalton. And you roll with that veteran mentality, you roll with that veteran mindset, and then if Nick Foles falls flat on his face, then you know what you don't have in your vets, rather than putting Justin Fields out there and feeding him to slaughter, essentially, in a really bad matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Now you've put Justin Fields out there. His confidence is probably completely decimated after this game against the Browns, which he was sacked, as I said, 9 times. And now you say to the media, we don't know if we're going to start Justin Fields. We think we might be going in a different direction. We're not sure yet. What is Justin Fields thinking? Well, they threw me out there against a really tough opponent with very little preparation, mind you. I didn't work with the ones all off season long. Matt Nagy should be fired at season's end, if not even sooner, because I don't anticipate this situation getting any better. I only anticipate the situation getting worse. And maybe, just maybe, Justin Fields will save Matt Nagy's ass when Matt Nagy finally decides to start Justin Fields. Justin Fields will show the ability, will show the intangibles, will show the physical traits that he has that made him a first-round draft choice by the Bears. And maybe Matt Nagy will get saved. That can happen. A quarterback can save a coach. It's happened a lot. So that's my take on the bad news Chicago Bears. What the hell is going on in Chicago? What a complete and total disaster. And anyone in the National Football League is laughing at the Chicago Bears. Anyone that covers anything regarding to football is laughing at the Chicago Bears, and rightfully so. They've completely botched this entire situation. And the fact that they don't know, I mean, you started Fields against the Browns. Yeah, it didn't go well, but now you're saying you don't know who you're going to start? That is cowardly. It's weak, and it doesn't keep anyone on their toes. I saw someone say, "Oh, well, you know what? This could be the Bears keeping the competition on their toes." Who's worried about the Bears offense? Come on, stop it. So I think that there are a lot of people out there that have looked at this story and they're saying, wow, this story is a joke. This story is ridiculous. This story is something else. And they're right. It's all the above. Shifting gears here now to the next biggest storyline in the National Football League. The biggest storyline. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to another one. We'll save that one for last. We'll save Brady and Belichick for last. I have another storyline to discuss that I think is very noteworthy in the National Football League, and that is Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams equal Green Bay gold. The Green Bay Packers brass, GM, CEO, presidents, personnel directors, whoever you may call it, in the front office, as well as head coach Matt LaFleur, should be thanking their lucky stars that Davante Adams is on the Green Bay Packers. Because if Davante Adams wasn't on the Green Bay Packers, I have a strong belief, in fact, very strong inkling from people that I know that cover the Green Bay Packers, that Aaron Rodgers would have been bye-bye, gone. But Aaron Rodgers stayed in Green Bay, remained a Packer, due in large part to the fact that Davante Adams is simply one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, if not the best wide receiver in the National Football League. Davante Adams telling Green Bay, let's try to run this back one more year with both of us. We're both on the last year of our contract. We can see if we can make another run here at a Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers comes back. Boom. Now, I don't know. I'm paraphrasing there, but I don't know if that's exactly what was said, but I have a strong belief that Aaron Rodgers did look at that team on paper, and he said to himself, well, I have one of the best receivers in the league. I have a guy that I know and trust and respect in Davante Adams. I respect him more than anybody on this team, including our coach, including our front office. But I know if I were to go to another team, there isn't another team with a receiver like this. Davante Adams is a special, special player. And you saw last Sunday night just that. You saw last Sunday night, you saw Sunday or Monday night, I can't remember. I'm losing track of the days. You saw the Green Bay Packers move the ball in 37 seconds down the field en route to a Mason Crosby game-winning field goal. You saw Davante Adams, you saw Aaron Rodgers hook up and link up in the huddle and on the field and on the sideline. And I think if those two guys are firing on all cylinders for Green Bay, just like they were last year, just like they have been the last few years, you will see Green Bay back in the NFC title game potentially against Tampa Bay or the Rams. It's going to be a combination of those three teams. Two out of those three teams are going to make the NFC title game. It's going to be the Green Bay Packers versus the Rams versus the Bucs, the Bucs versus the Packers. That's how it's going to be. It's going to be a combination of those three teams. Two of those three teams are going to make the NFC title game, and one of the reasons why, if Green Bay finds themselves there, is, I think the main reason why, Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. Would have been a very ugly situation for Aaron Rodgers leaving Green Bay, and thankfully Davante Adams saved the Packers by convincing Aaron Rodgers to stay. All right. Grand finale. Tom Brady heads back to New England this Sunday night to take on Bill Belichick and the Patriots and Mac Jones and the New England Patriots. Mac Jones had a real rough start in his last go. Three interceptions. What was it, like 3 consecutive incomplete passes to end the game, something like that. Just bad play from Mac Jones last week. But I'm a Mac Jones believer. I believe in Mac Jones. I think he can be the guy there. I liked him coming out of college. I liked the fit of Mac Jones being picked and selected by the New England Patriots. Liked it a lot. But when I tell you that this is the biggest storyline that I've seen in a long, long time, it is the biggest storyline. Circle this game on your calendar, as everyone did when the schedules came out. And you know that Tom Brady has something up his sleeve for Bill. You know that Bill has something up his sleeve for Tom. I can't wait to see how this game, just X's and O's wise, plays itself out. Because New England's offense is Tampa's offense. Tampa's defense is a different defense. Bill Belichick's defense is Bill's defense. This is going to be very, very fun. And I think that this is going to be one of the highest rated football games outside of the Super Bowl in many, many years. Many, many years. But it seems like along the way, the media is all over this game, and rightfully so. It's a huge story. Brady going back to New England, of course. But I feel like the media has completely forgot the story. Did people forget the story? I think they have. And the story of Brady leaving the Patriots is not what is being told. And I don't understand that. The story of Brady leaving the Patriots is simple. It's a simple story that has a few parts to it. Tom Brady entering his 21st season in the National Football League, an unprecedented 21st season, had for the first time in his career an opportunity to be a free agent. And New England, in the process of trying to bring him back, wanting him back, and Robert Kraft wanting him back, and Bill Belichick wanting him back. People are saying that Bill Belichick didn't want him back, but that's not necessarily true. Bill Belichick did want him back. Robert Kraft wanted him back. It was just in the sense that Robert Kraft wanted Brady back more than Bill Belichick. It was in the sense that Bill Belichick, as the coach, was ready and willing to move on if, in fact, it went there, because Bill Belichick is the type of coach, type of GM that likes to think one step ahead. He likes to get rid of players 3 years earlier than he's supposed to. He likes to move one step ahead and be prepared for that next step, even if it hasn't happened yet. So, that being said, Brady, in entering his 21st year, he's got the opportunity to be a free agent for the first time. New England, while Brady is technically still under contract, is trying to do anything they can prior to Brady's contract expiring and bringing in players that would entice Tom Brady to stay, giving him weapons that would entice Tom Brady to stay rather than forcing him out the door if they can't bring in those weapons. One of those weapons that the New England Patriots tried to trade for, that they were in the running to trade for, was current Buffalo Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs. Yes, the New England Patriots tried to trade for Stephon Diggs, but Buffalo made it happen. Buffalo made a better offer. Buffalo gave more picks to Minnesota for Stephon Diggs, and New England lost out. When New England lost out on Stephon Diggs, when New England lost out on a lot of other weapons in free agency, Tom Brady decided that enough was enough. It was time to move on. The team wasn't headed in the right direction, and the cupboard was pretty bare there. And Brady had to find a team that had weapons on it already that he could take off and maybe bring a few people over. And did anyone anticipate Brady would not only go to Tampa Bay, but would bring Gronk and would bring Antonio Brown, would bring, not in the sense that it would be successful, but Tom Brady has always been that guy. He's been that type of powerful figure in the league, given the results that he's provided within the league. He can really call his shots. He can essentially be the GM of any team that he plays for. And even today, bringing in a guy like Richard Sherman. Teams just don't make those moves in the middle of a season, week 4, we're going to just sign Richard Sherman, an all-pro corner. Well, you do if you have Tom Brady calling the shots as the quarterback, GM, offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? So I look at Brady leaving New England as, okay, I have earned the right to be a free agent for the first time in my career. I have earned the right to play in my body more than 21 years. I'm going to do it on a team that gives me the best chance to win. New England no longer gives me that chance. So I'm going to leave. This was not about Belichick wanting Brady gone. This was not about Bill Belichick saying to Robert Kraft, we don't need Tom Brady. Those things never happened. I think the media loves to sensationalize stories like this because it's great clickbait. It's good for ratings, but that's not really how it went down. And Brady knew that, yeah, Belichick was going to spend a year somewhat rebuilding the team in order to get better the following year. And that's just what New England did last year. And still, with this crazy change to the roster, New England went 7-9 with a terrible Cam Newton and spent the offseason adding pieces again, bringing in Hunter Henry, bringing in Jonnu Smith, bringing in Matt Judon, and really setting themselves up for the future with a quarterback that is very, very similar to Tom Brady in terms of his skill set. He's accurate. He throws well over the middle of the field. He's smart. Mac Jones is very similar to Tom Brady in a lot of ways. Big, strong. I mean, in terms of the arm is there, accuracy is there. Mac Jones is a little bit bigger than Brady, but a little bit more athletic than Brady, but not by much. Okay, not by much. Sorry, Mac, but not by much. So it worked out for both sides. Granted, the optics look terrible when you let go of the greatest quarterback of all time. You let him go in the sense that you didn't let him go, though. I'm correcting myself in saying that. They didn't let him go. He had the opportunity to be a free agent, and they didn't bring in the players. They couldn't bring in the players that he wanted due to salary cap reasons and missing the boat on trades for guys like Stephon Diggs. Brady saw the writing on the wall and just moved on. And can any player say, yeah, I moved on from a team after playing for them for 20 years to play another couple years with another team? I mean, he more than wore out his welcome in New England. He did more than enough for the Patriots for them to move on and go in another direction. And yeah, did the Patriots think that Brady would go somewhere and win a Super Bowl? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Did they care? No, they didn't. They had to move on. They have their own franchise to run. Did anyone think that Tampa Bay was going to win the Super Bowl in Brady's first year with Tampa Bay? No, they did not. Especially after starting the season 7-5. But now Brady's bringing in whoever he wants to this team in Tampa Bay, and he's calling the shots. And I'm very curious in terms of calling the shots. He knew in New England that it was a two-man show. It was him and Bill. But going to Tampa Bay, it was his show. It is his show. With all due respect to great coaches like Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich has done a hell of a job as well, even prior to getting Tom Brady. But when they brought in Brady, it completely changed the whole complexion of their team, of their locker room. It allowed them to bring in players that they would never have been able to bring in had Jameis Winston been their quarterback. So you had a quarterback at the time in Jameis Winston throwing 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions with a 4,000 or 5,000 yards, something crazy. Tom's looking at that like, man, I won't throw 30 interceptions. My yards will be more. My touchdowns will be more. We'll win games the way that I know how to win games with this crew, with this group. And I'm going to bring Rob Gronkowski, and I'm going to bring Antonio Brown, and I'm going to try to bring in other players like Gio Bernard to fill certain roles, Richard Sherman to fill another role when we have openings on this roster. Brady had to do his thing in order to extend his career and win. Days of winning in New England were over. As well, the AFC East was changing with teams like the Buffalo Bills behind my back here making their comeback. Teams like Miami getting younger on defense and getting skill position players that they haven't had the talent, the likes of in a long, long time. And then you just have the Jets. And we'll just leave it at that. But as fun as this story is, I feel like people are getting it wrong. I feel like people are saying that Bill didn't want Tom. Bill was just ready to move on from Tom if he had to. I truly do not believe that the words ever came out of Bill Belichick's mouth that he wanted to move on from Tom Brady. It was just Bill Belichick approaches this game as a business. Tom Brady, for his own sake and his own future, approached the game as a business, and sometimes business decisions lead to departures. 20 damn years. Who has done that? It's not like Brady had a short stint in New England and it ended too soon. Come on, people. It is what it is. But it will provide a wonderful storyline for this weekend, Sunday night. I know where I will be. I know where you will be watching that game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New England Patriots. And I'll tell you this. I think Tom Brady is going to shred the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. I think statistically it could be one of the best games he's ever played in. I'm talking 450 yards, 500 yards. I could see it being a crazy day for Tom Brady at the office. I could also see Mac Jones struggling, which would then put the scope, the target on Bill Belichick's back even more as to why did they let go of Tom Brady, but they didn't let go of Tom Brady. It was just a mutual departure. And sometimes that's okay. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, talking about the biggest storylines in the National Football League heading into Week 4, as well as the shocks and stars. Rattle those up for you right here, right now. Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, as I said, Josh Allen, of course, star of the week. Greatly enjoyed watching my Buffalo Bills whoop on the Washington football team by a score of 43-21. It was 21-14 at one point. Buffalo's offense roared into victory. There you have it. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more this weekend. Buffalo Bills pregame show hosted by yours truly, and I'm going to be having an awesome guest on the show. So tune into that. Take care. Stay safe.